Well, welcome to this episode of the Good Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Good. In this podcast, we explore the mindsets, habits, and tools that leaders and high performers thrive on without losing sight of what really matters. My guest today is Dr. Mary Anderson, the best-selling author of the book, The Happy High Achiever, a book that flips the script on what it means to succeed. For decades, Mary has worked with high achievers from executives to entrepreneurs to elite athletes, and she's noticed something troubling. The very traits that fuel their success often undermine their happiness. Her solution? The Eight Essentials, a research-based framework rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy that helps ambitious people achieve big goals and enjoy the ride. Today, we're unpacking those essentials one by one. Welcome to the Good Leadership Podcast, where we explore the stories, strategies, and insights of thought leaders who inspire us to think differently and lead better. Through candid conversations and expert perspectives, we dive into the challenges, breakthroughs, and practical lessons that shape exceptional leadership. Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Charles. It's so great to see you. And hello to all the listeners and viewers out there.
Well, I know you've worked with many high achievers, but is there an aha moment that made you realize they needed a different playbook for happiness and success?
I had been seeing patients for years in the financial district of Boston, and I would review this list of cognitive distortions. So, cognitive distortions, also called cognitive errors, are unhelpful thoughts that are really based on faulty beliefs, assumptions, misinterpretations. And what they do is they needlessly ratchet up our stress and anxiety, and they usually keep us stuck. So when I'm working with patients, I'd read through this list. There's about 12 cognitive distortions. And I would say, our mission, if we choose to accept it, which I hope we do, is to go through this list and you're the expert on you. And as I read through each one and describe them, you tell me which resonates as something you do. And I try to normalize it that as humans, these are ubiquitous. We all engage in cognitive errors, cognitive distortions. It doesn't mean that we're doing anything wrong. It's just something that happens. But what I found, Charles, is that I would go through a list of 12 and this subset of high achievers. So it was ambitious, goal oriented, high achievers who often were riddled with anxiety, stress, a lot of burnout, perfectionism, self-doubt. They kept choosing the same 3 cognitive distortions from a list of 12. This pattern emerged that was so obvious, I couldn't ignore it. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. I came to call it the troublesome trifecta because it was the 3 cognitive distortions that were really the most problematic and creating this obstacle for these high achievers where they weren't enjoying their excellence. These were awesome humans, brilliant. There's got to be a book about this that's really targeted for high achievers. The successful business professional, the doctor, the lawyer, the grad student who's so goal oriented, but a jam packed schedule. And there really wasn't, Charles. My book is based on CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And then there were books for high achievers, more business oriented kind of books. But there wasn't anything that really provided CBT through a lens that was individually tailored, really bespoke for the high achieving clientele that I was working with. And so that was really the moment after seeing this repeated pattern of these cognitive distortions really play out time and time again that was unique from if I had patients coming in with other issues. Maybe they had recently lost a loved one, so they were dealing with depression, grieving. Their cognitive distortions were different than this high achieving cohort who was struggling with anxiety, stress, and burnout. So that's when I knew. I was like, that was really when the idea was born for the Happy High Achiever. And then it took years in the making to actually get it to have the book holding in my hand today that I'm so excited and grateful to have. But that was really how I knew this needed to be done.
Well, and I've seen it too with lots of high achievers, CEOs and the like, who they've just gone public, their company, they're doing great. They had everything, right? Wealth, status, influence. But many times they say, I thought I'd be happy by now, but I just keep thinking about that next milestone. And really, they're running a race with no finish line. They're chasing achievement for happiness when in reality, you say the formula needs to be reversed. You build happiness in the process, and then achievement becomes more sustainable.
Absolutely. I've seen so many people where they're just on to the next, right? So they have an achievement, they don't pause to celebrate. And I talk about that in my book, just how important it is to pause and celebrate the victories, not to stop. And sometimes high achievers conflate pausing with paralysis and they'll think, oh, Dre, I can't stop. And I'm like, you're not stopping. You're just pausing to refuel, right? So if you're driving cross country to California, do you think it's, you know, stopping and somehow deleterious to go to the gas station? You got to go to the gas station, refill the tank to keep driving cross country. And so I really try to help people understand that if we can build in certain types of self care and self talk behaviors and ways of thinking, that is literally what's going to help you go the distance and keep enjoying your success long term and not have this kind of destination fallacy of like, well, once I hit a certain point, then I'll be happy. Because what they find is that they're really not. They're really not in terms of how they're thinking. This relentless self-criticism and relentless pace is what I find, Charles, is particularly problematic for my high achievers. And they end up coming to see me because they're burnt out and really, really struggling with stress.
From reading the book, two insights for me. First was how deeply ingrained the I'll be happy when mentality is, even in people who should know better. And then second, on how much it really forced me to confront my own tendencies toward overwork and perfectionism.
Yes, the perfectionism is definitely something I see a lot of. And this idea, Dr. A, I should be able to handle all of this, and this all or nothing mentality that they have to continuously strive and that everything needs to be done and everyone needs to be totally blown away by my presentation, Dr. A, and just setting themselves up for this paradigm, this dynamic, but there's so much pressure that they're putting on themselves that it's really hard to be happy and healthy and sustainably high achieving with so much pressure on themselves. So perfectionism, definitely something I see a lot of. Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about how thoughts, feelings, and behaviors fit into this framework because I love how you identify each and how really one leads to another.
Absolutely. So, the basis of this book is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. It's an empirically supported treatment for anxiety and depression. So, I like using evidence based treatment. And the really core fundamental concept of CBT, I use like a triangle to show people, is thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And so, our thoughts, how we think about ourselves, other people, the world, directly impacts our feelings and behaviors. So, our feelings, our emotions, our mood, and behaviors. So, how we show up in the world, how we communicate and interact. So, that triangle I show, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, have bidirectional arrows in between them. If you can picture it for the listeners out there, what that means is thoughts, feelings, behaviors all directly impact each other. So, they're all interrelated. And so we really see this show up in terms of if I have someone going for a job interview. I help a lot of people, Charles, I help a lot of people with anticipatory anxiety prior to the big job interviews. And if they go in with a thought like, what if I screw up? What if I sound dumb? What if I fumble over a word? What if they think I sound stupid? What if they think I'm incompetent? If they're thinking like that, how are they going to feel? Not good, right? And these people, again, most of the people I'm working with, JDs, PhDs, really, really impressive resumes and CVs, but still they'll have this really chronic negative self talk that then will erode their self confidence. Because if they're thinking, what if I mess up? Or, what if I don't eloquently elocute every, polysyllabic verbiage to impress? Then they're starting to feel really anxious. They start feeling nervous. And then behaviorally, how that shows up is they might not be as engaged. They might have harder time with eye contact. It's harder to be engaged and to really listen and then ask questions because they're so in their head worrying. Conversely, if I can get them to a place of a balanced thought where it's not toxic positivity, it's not saying like, I'm sure I'll get this job, right? The truth is, we don't know what's going to happen. But what they can ground themselves is in the reality of, I don't know what's going to happen. I really want this job, but I'm going to prepare and practice and I'll do my best. And no matter what, I'm just so excited I got this job and I get interview experience. And there's so many things that I can help people remind themselves that will then empower them in terms of how they're feeling. a way to raise their confidence is, wow, they invited me for this interview. I'm excited and grateful I got it. I remind them to think about all of their past successes, really boost their calm and confidence in terms of how they're feeling. And then they walk into that room, they're shaking that person's hand, or if they're on the screen and saying hello, they are coming in with energy. They're believing in themselves. So they're coming across as more confident, more engaging, and it really makes a big difference. So thoughts, feelings, and behaviors absolutely impacts our professional life, our productivity, our personal lives. And it's something that I teach my patients from the very beginning of therapy so that they're building their toolbox of science based strategies and skills. It equips them with how to transform how they're thinking and also their behaviors, their self care to really optimize how they're feeling and how they're showing up in the world.
But we often don't ask ourselves, what am I thinking? But we usually know how we're feeling. So by noticing our emotional state, right, we can work backward to uncover the thoughts that created it. And I love your flashlight metaphor, where the attention is like a flashlight beam. When it's pointed, it determines kind of what we notice, amplify, and respond to. And I've noticed this too with a lot of high achievers. They point their flashlight to their fears, the self doubts, to the anxious what if scenarios. When it's more productive if you can redirect that beam toward constructive perspectives that fuel better emotional states and performance.
Absolutely. I literally keep a flashlight right next to me because when I work with patients, I'll say, where are you shining your flashlight right now? So, again, absolutely, where we shine our flashlight, just like when you shine it in a room, if I shine it up or down, left or right, that's what I'll see, right? So the whole room is still there, but where you shine your light is what you'll see. And similarly, like with our attention, we'll have lots of thoughts and we can't stop thoughts from happening. So I really like to normalize that. We're going to have lots of thoughts. The goal is not to try to stop our thoughts. The goal is really to notice which thought are we focusing our attention on? Just like where we choose where in the room to focus our flashlight, it becomes very important which thought we're focusing our attention on. Because again, that person walking into the interview room, they might be having lots of different thoughts and it might pop in their head. What if I say something stupid? Or what if I fumble over a word? That's okay. That thought can be there. But if they also have the thought, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so grateful for this interview. If they can choose to really focus their attention on that thought and keep reminding themselves of, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. That is going to directly impact how they feel and how they show up. So the flashlight metaphor helps a lot of my patients. I'll have lawyers come in and they're like, Dr. A, I don't know what to do. I'm so stressed out. And I'm like, where are you shining your flashlight? And they'll say, if I lose this trial, my career is ruined. My reputation's ruined. My career is ruined. And sometimes they really, I call it jumping kind of down the rabbit hole head first. And they're like, if I don't win this trial, my reputation's ruined, and then I'm gonna get, and they'll just go into this real spiral of anxiety. And so it's so important that they catch those cognitive distortions. So we really try to raise people's awareness of when they're engaging in cognitive distortions. And then we move from the awareness into action. So once we have our awareness, we move into action by challenging those unhelpful thoughts and then generating more new and improved self talk, which is going to allow them to feel better and move themselves forward so they don't just stay stuck, kind of spiraling in that anxiety and worry.
Poking holes, you're right. Questioning your assumptions, making sure that those beliefs are accurate, so important. Let's move on to the troublesome trifecta, because these just aren't bad habits. They're mental traps that distort reality. They create unnecessary stress and really keep high achievers from operating at their best.
Yes, absolutely. Great question. Okay, troublesome trifecta. So the very first one that is so common and really is a cause of such stress and anxiety for my patients is all or nothing thinking. So, first one, all or nothing thinking. So, this is forcing a dichotomy where there need not be one. So, people will say, everyone has to be totally blown away by my presentation. So, it's this very like all or nothing, perfect or failure. And there's a rigidity in the thinking. And so, oftentimes, it's really what is at the root of perfectionism because people are thinking, I have to do it just right. It has to be perfect, or else it's not good enough. It's a failure. And what I find in terms of my high achievers is often they're tying their self worth to their achievements, appearance, or performance. And so they're terrified of making mistakes. And so while it would be more helpful to see the gray, they start getting into this habit of black and white thinking, this all or nothing thinking that really ratchets up the pressure, the anxiety, the stress. And so I actually call all or nothing thinking pressure cooker thinking because it adds so much pressure. I need to do all of this. Everything has to get done. I have this endless to-do list. And if I don't get it done, everything's ruined. Like this really extreme self-talk sometimes that really, really stresses people out and adds pressure. I always applaud people's desire to do their best, but that's where, again, it becomes so important. We can't conflate excellence and perfection. It's just actually recognizing that perfectionism is going to limit you, that all or nothing thinking that everything has to be just right. It's definitely going to decrease efficiency and productivity because people are scrutinizing every detail over and over, trying to be perfect. It really limits them. So, all or nothing thinking is something to really watch out for. And then the next one is jumping to conclusions. That's the next troublesome trifecta, cognitive distortion. Jumping to conclusions comes in kind of two flavors. There's negative fortune telling and mind reading. So, negative fortune telling is when we predict that something that hasn't happened yet, we are predicting it's not going to go well, that somehow there'll be a negative outcome. So, this looks like Dr. A, I know I'm gonna fail the exam, or they'll say like, I know my presentation's gonna be a flop, or the the talk I need to give, I just know I'm not gonna be prepared for it. They're just already thinking things that I'll say, well, when is your talk? Well, it's 6 months from now. And I'm like, okay, I'm really hopeful for you. We can get you there. You got 6 months. But if they're already predicting negatively, you can see how that would impact how they feel. First of all, they're going to be much more stressed and anxious. And then what can happen is behaviorally, it can actually promote a self fulfilling prophecy in terms of if someone thinks their presentation is not going to go well or their talk's not going to go well, they might actually then delay getting started. So they'll procrastinate. And especially if people start thinking this has to be perfect and it's not going to go well, then what happens is what I call perfectionism fueled procrastination because they're so afraid it's not going to go well and be just right that they won't even start. The other kind is mind reading. And this is where people assume that people are responding negatively to them or somehow don't like them without even having all the information. So, can we know what people actually think of us? No. I often work through this with a lot of clients where we can't know what people are thinking unless they tell us and they tell us the truth, right? And also, I sit with people where I work through, and is it even helpful to think that the interviewer doesn't like with the job interview scenario? The job interview, I know they're not going to like me, Dr. A. How does that help you? So that's just gonna psych them out, so to speak. It's going to really ratchet up the stress and anxiety. And again, it's gonna make it harder to be their best. So we got all or nothing thinking, jumping to conclusions with that negative fortune telling and mind reading. And the last one is should statements. And this is where people try to motivate ourselves, right? With the shoulds. But really what it is just shining the flashlight of our attention, really focusing on our thoughts on what we're lacking or what we find deficient in ourselves. And often I'll hear patients should themselves where I should be able to handle all of this, Dr. A. I should be further ahead in my career. I should be doing, what my colleagues are doing, what's wrong with me. And so again, they're really using the shoulds to really berate themselves, and unfortunately, what that one does is it just undermines people's confidence. It erodes confidence. It creates this self-doubt. It really disturbs their confidence. And then behaviorally, they don't show up as their best. And so we can should ourselves, we can should other people. So when we should ourselves, we typically feel deficient, guilty, not good enough. If we should other people, we're starting to feel usually resentful and frustrated because he should be easier to talk to. They should be doing this. She should be doing the task better. Whatever we're shoulding people about is not going to help us in terms of how we're feeling and then interacting with them. And then we can even should situations where people will come in and say, Dr. A, it shouldn't be like this. And it's just sometimes what that can lead to is people just get stuck and they don't know how to move themselves forward. So Again, all or nothing thinking, jumping to conclusions, and should statements. Those are the big three that I find my ambitious achievers who are struggling with the anxiety, the stress, the worry, self doubt, perfectionism. Those are the big three to watch out for.
Well, if you can spot and dismantle these, you can reclaim a lot of mental energy back. So
Mhm.
let's dive into the first essential: strive for excellence, not perfection. We kind of touched upon this already. You call perfectionism really the Achilles heel of the ambitious. Why do you think it's so seductive for high achievers? I find that perfectionism often masquerades as a strength because you tell yourself, I have high standards and that's why I succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think it sounds semantic, but it really is powerful. The difference between striving for excellence and striving for perfection. So striving for perfection typically means attempting to adhere to kind of a rigid definition, often set by other people, of what is right or exact. And sometimes I often have high achieving clients where they're not even given really clear expectations or feedback. So they're like trying to be perfect within their organization but not often getting feedback or clear guidance. So then they're working towards this like amorphous idea of perfectionism, which is really, really stressful for them. So when I talk about excellence, what I mean is striving to be your best while knowing that best will differ by the day because we're human and really allowing for that humanity. So I often say excellence allows for high achievement and our humanity. So if I have a consultant who just flew a 15-hour flight and they're like, well, I have to be exactly the same as if I was at home and well rested, that just doesn't make sense. And usually when I explain it to people like that, they're like, okay. So when that consultant lands, we're still trying to help that consultant do the best that they can. But we do have to account for the fact you just had a 15-hour flight. So it's got to maybe feel a little different than if you were at home well rested. Or if I'm helping people like post divorce, or if they have the flu, or anything like that, we've just got to allow for the fact that we are humans. We're not robots. So our best will differ by the day. So that's the difference is we absolutely want to strive to be our best, but just knowing that our best will differ by the day and that no matter what, that our performance, our achievement in no way impacts our worth as a person. And that's a big one because I think a lot of times people are really basing their internal worth on external validation. So I'll often talk with high achieving clients about if you tie your internal worth to external validation, you're going to live with chronic anxiety and worry. So really knowing that you have inherent human worth is unconditional. And so to take that off the table, we're not even talking about your worth as a person. That actually, where people might think, but Dr. A, won't that make me lazy? No, what it'll make you is not as afraid. You're not going to be terrified to make mistakes because your self-worth is not on the table. It's not up for grabs. So that way you'll be more empowered to take strategic risks, to try that innovative thought, to stretch yourself. Where I often find high achievers will limit themselves, Charles, because they're so afraid of looking foolish, incompetent, huge fear of looking incompetent, or in any way putting themselves into a position where they may not look like the expert. And unfortunately, that's really going to limit them in terms of what they'll do in their life. So striving for excellence is really the antidote to that. Again, we're keeping our expectations for ourselves. Our standards are nice and high, but they're actually achievable and sustainably achievable, which is really, really important because we don't want to be a one hit wonder. We want to be sustainably happy and high achieving.
And I love how you say excellence keeps the bar high, but allows for humanity.
Hmm.
It's not about lowering your standards, it's about holding high expectations without self destruction. And you have three hooks that you say just be on the lookout for these three common hooks that keep high achievers trapped in perfectionism: the comparison trap,
Yes.
constantly measuring yourself against others. Failure seems fatal, believing that any setback will destroy your dreams, erase all your efforts. And then the desire to be valued, linking your worth, like what you mentioned, to what you achieve instead of who you are, which I find that one particularly challenging.
Yeah, I know that one takes some work for people, absolutely, but just knowing that your achievements are important. So again, it's about balance. I'm all about balance. That achievements are really important, but just knowing that no matter what, whether you achieve a goal or not, that inherently you matter as you are now. whether you achieve something or not. And so that one takes practice for people to just remind themselves, I can hold space for both, where I can keep really striving and aspiring to greater. We can keep wanting to climb big mountains. That's awesome. I love that. I love helping people be their best and keep becoming their best. It's just so important that we stay grounded, that even in this very moment, we already are enough. And again, that's because it really helps us stay calm and confident that whether or not we achieve the goal, we are fundamentally okay and enough. So we're not so attached to the outcome that we're just riddled with stress and worry about the outcome.
Let's move to essential number two. You argue that self care is strategic, not indulgent. So, this is really tough for a lot of high achievers that I've talked to because they confuse self care with pampering. They think bubble baths, spa days, but strategic self care is more about sustainability.
Absolutely. And yes, I love to debunk the self-care myth. So there's this myth out there that self-care means like 2-hour bubble baths and week-long meditation retreats, which is fantastic. If people have time for that and want to do that, that's wonderful. Most of the clients I've worked with have jam-packed schedules. So that's just not going to be doable. And I often say we got to keep self-care doable so that we keep doing it. And what I've done is I've created this acronym, SELF, the self care acronym. It's 4 science based self care fundamentals that are so important, so key to ensure that people are implementing, because that is what will fuel them forward with the energy to feel and be their best. So I can run through the CLF if you'd
Love
like,
it.
Charles. Okay.
Sure.
SELF. S is for sleep. And here, as adults, we want to aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And what we know is when people are chronically sleep deprived, they're not going to be feeling or performing at their best. But rather, when we get that 7 to 9 hours a night, that is when we're going to have really enhanced decision making, productivity, efficiency. We're going to be feeling and performing at our highest. So, sleep is absolutely essential to prioritize. And I know that's hard for high achievers because we like to not slow down. We're like, let's just eke out another hour of work at night. But really, the ROI of sleep is huge. So 7 to 9. And if you're getting like 5, just try to aim for as close to 7 as you can. But if people are getting 5 or less hours of sleep a night, it's really problematic in terms of mood, physical health, and really for performance at work. So S is for sleep, aim for 7 to 9 hours. E is for exercise. And so here we want to aim for about 30 minutes or more of physical activity most days. And why that's so important, we know in terms of physical health, mood management, and really it's one of the most efficient ways to decrease cortisol. So cortisol is our stress hormone. So one of the most efficient ways to decrease cortisol is exercise. So if you want to effectively manage stress and prevent burnout or heal from burnout, physical activity is the way to go. And here people ask me all the time, Dr. A, what is the best exercise to do? And this is where I'm extremely practical. And I say, whichever exercise you will do. I mean it.
There you go.
If you say, like, I need to go to the gym 5 days a week and do hit training, if you're not going, that's not effective. But if people are like, okay, I can go for walks outside 4 days a week, that's awesome. It's just trying to get daily movement 30 minutes or more. Again, it's really going to help manage that cortisol. Most of us are like marinating in cortisol. So we're sitting all day and feeling the stress, but not getting out there and moving. And interestingly, I've found that a lot of my high achieving patients often were like varsity athletes or 2 sport varsity athletes in school, in high school or college. And so their bodies were used to movement. And then now, they're working in the business world many, many hours a week and they're just sitting all day and their body used to move a lot. So it's particularly, I think, problematic. And that's where a quick strategy where I got so many of the guys just like, I'm like, go become part of a racquetball club. And now there's pickleball, which is great because people are getting into pickleball. Go play pickleball or get into a golf league just so you're walking the course, like something. We just need movement. So it's S is sleep, E is exercise, L is look forward. This is the one that
This
usually
is my
surprises.
favorite one.
Yeah, this
This
is
is
the one that surprises people. Why is this your favorite one?
Well, just I hear this a lot from high achievers, and I've encountered it in the past as well, is that there's just nothing to look forward to keep you motivated along the path. You have this big goal, this audacious goal way out in the future, but nothing that can keep you and sustain motivation every single day or every week to keep you looking forward to something or those micro victories on your way to that larger success.
Absolutely, Charles. So that's what happens is because of that all or nothing thinking kind of tendency of high achievers, they're just planning the big thing, right? They're planning. So if I'm working with grad students, they're planning, once they get the PhD or once they pass the bar exam for my law students or the big win or promotion at their company or like making partner for the law firm. And so that's great, but that is sometimes months or years away. That's going to be very difficult to sustain motivation. So the L of SELF is to look forward. So look forward to at least one pleasant activity a week. And why this is so important is it provides a powerful mood boost. Just anticipating something positive lights up the pleasure center in our brain as if we're doing the pleasant activity. So it's really like double bang for your buck, which I really like. So just thinking about it will be happiness enhancing. And then when you're actually doing the behavior, it's also happiness enhancing. And I really encourage people keep it doable. So this is plan a meetup with a friend or queue up a favorite Netflix episode or an episode of something that you really want to watch and say, okay, if it's Monday and Thursday is going to be a really busy day, say, okay, at the end of Thursday, I'm going to make sure that I make time to watch one episode of my favorite show that I haven't watched in a while. So it's, watch your favorite show, plan a meetup with a friend, plan to get your favorite takeout, book a massage. That's a really great one too. Anything that you will look forward to, but that feels doable and doesn't add more stress. So that's a big one. So I've had people like, "I know, Dr. A, I should vacuum this week." And I'm like, "All right." So I stay curious and I'm like, because I don't particularly love to vacuum, but I was like, maybe they do. Is that something you would look forward to? Do you like that? And they're like, no, but it needs to get done. So I'm like, okay, we'll categorize that as a helpful activity. But looking forward to a pleasant activity, it's got to be something you'd actually look forward to. It's got to be doable. So put it in your schedule. Remind yourself, because again, that's where you're going to get the mood boost. Remind yourself that you have this thing to look forward to. And then make sure you really stay committed. Go do the nice thing. And often I tell people if for any reason the thing that you planned can't happen for some reason, just pivot. Do something else that is nice for yourself in that moment because having one pleasant thing to look forward to will help your life feel more than just like work, home, rinse, and repeat. And that happens for a lot of people where the work weeks and even the weekends are tough because it'll be like, Dr. A, Monday through Friday slammed, and then our Saturdays, Sundays are super scheduled out, especially if they have little kiddos. They're busy all weekend. So they're not having any time to really relax and unwind. So just having one doable, pleasant activity to look forward to is absolutely huge. And most of the high achievers that I work with, how many pleasant activities do you think they usually have? When they first come to see me, how many pleasant activities do you think they regularly have planned in their schedules?
One or zero.
We got it. It's 0. Most of them have nothing they're particularly looking forward to, and I'll mention it to them, and they'll say, "Oh, I know, I need to take a vacation," and that's great. I'm like, "Yes, plan a vacation, but we need the smaller," like you're talking about micro, like a micro pleasant activity. It's really about finding ways within whatever type of schedule you're working with to make that time for yourself is so important. Okay, so SELF, sleep, exercise, look forward. The last one's F. And this one's important. I think we all know F for fuel, hydration, and nutrition, right? So, nutrition, we know, super important for health. But I think sometimes people don't even recognize, in terms of work performance, how important it is. So, hydration, even minimal amount of dehydration can really negatively impact cognitive processing speed. So, it's really important to drink water. Food, it's just important to remember lean protein, fruits and veggies, to eat small amounts, especially if people are working on big projects. Having large meals or like high calorie, high fat meals, it's just going to be harder to have focus and clarity. And the other part of F that I often talk about too is fuel your mind with moments of quiet. Think how much we are just like inundated with information, barrage with problems to solve. We've got to take little moments, even if it's just 3 deep breaths a day. I work on that with a lot of people. Just make time for 3 deep breaths a day. We all can do that. So 3 deep breaths a day, meditation, if people want to do that, journaling, getting outside into nature, but something to help ourselves unplug because it's so important to keep fueling ourselves again. I'm trying to help people be sustainable, happy high achievers.
That's a great acronym to help with that self-care. And you're right. It doesn't have to be vacations. It could be a 60-second micro reset.
Yes.
Stand up, take 3 deep breaths, intentionally release muscles in your face and shoulders. Just a short break that tells your nervous system, we're safe and we can focus now, which really offers more clarity and lowers your stress. I hope this episode has provided you with valuable insights. If it has, I ask you to share it with someone who would also benefit from it. If you've been enjoying and gaining knowledge from this podcast, then subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find all the previous episodes of the podcast and additional learning resources. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify and leave up to a 5-star review.